Kia ora, church family. Are you enjoying some greater freedoms this week? But has time slipped away on all of us? Suddenly here we are in December, the weeks and months have slipped by. And has this caused you concern? Have we used lockdown well? Has it changed the way we use time? Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 says there is a time for everything under the sun. Do some of these statements reflect our lockdown experiences? A time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. Have we found God-ordained tasks for ourselves, whether it be phoning to encourage someone, organising online connections, Zoom meetings, which we've had a fair few, time for prayer, time for giving to those in need, connecting with neighbours, distanced of course, home and garden projects, teaching your children, or working from home. Are we God's people in this era able to know God's proper time and the right way he calls us to serve him? Psalm 9 verse 9 encourages us, God is a stronghold in times of trial. And Psalm 31 verse 15, my times are in your hand. My times are in God's hands. God knows the trials and the frustrations, and he knows the way ahead. He still has a plan for our lives, even if it seems to have been interrupted. Can we take encouragement from past experiences, waiting on God's timing for a plan or a vision he's given us? Remembering his faithfulness in the past gives hope for the future. I'd like to share an example from 2019, when I was convinced it was the right time to plan a trekking trip to Nepal, supporting the TNT Trust with their vision for establishing a trekking route in the Christian communities there. Shane and Jen Hutchinson had already left in January to go to Nepal for Shane to teach in this INF school for the staff children, and their 3 attended there as well. And so it was a fitting plan to go during this year when we would be able to meet up with them as well as do our trekking. And so the plan was that we would travel over there in October, and the plans were made. But Shane and Jen were having trouble renewing their visa, and eventually it came to the month of June when they had to leave the country because the visa had not been renewed. And after some deliberation, plans were made for them to go and stay in the UK, where God provided amazingly for them. Meanwhile, we continued planning to go to Nepal. The months slipped by, and the Hutchies were still in UK. And so we concerned, will we arrive and find no Hutchies in residence? However, 2 to 3 weeks before we were due to arrive, their visas were granted and they were able to return to Nepal and complete the paperwork. And so thankfully, they returned in time. So they were there to meet us. My other question that raised was we needed 6 people in our team. We had 3 porters who each were to carry packs for 2 people, but we only had 5 people. And I kept asking who would like to join the trip, and no further person put their name forward. However, when Shane and Jen got back to Nepal, it turned out it was school holidays and Shane was able to join us and become the 6th member of the team. So that was absolutely fantastic. So we were able to complete our trekking route. We assembled water filters and delivered them. We stayed in villages. We met the Nepalis, and we made important connections with the Nepali friends. They're friends of Tony McLean, who lost his life at the tragedy. So here we have Sean with Silas, our pastor, the pastor and our trekking guide, Tristan, the manager of the Happy Home, Dr. Shiva, who manages the Garambesi Hospital, and David. So God's timing was absolutely perfect. Everything came together, although we had questions about how it was all going to work. The other amazing thing was we got this trip in 2019 before COVID hit in 2020, when we couldn't have made the trip. Another example of God's timing is, of course, our Christmas time. As we remember the Advent season, we remember the ultimate example of God's timing, showing us God does have an overall plan of time that spans the centuries, not just our lives, but the centuries. The Old Testament times, people were waiting for the Messiah, waiting for his arrival. Hundreds of years before Jesus came, Isaiah wrote in chapter 7, verse 14, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son and call him Emmanuel." And Mike quoted Jeremiah 23:5. "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up to David a righteous branch, and he will be called the Lord, our righteousness." And we know God fulfilled his plan at the exact right time, as we read in Galatians 4:4. "But when the time had fully come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who are under the law, and might receive full rights as children of God." Waiting for God's timing can be a challenging test. And does our faith hold up? God is faithful, and we can trust him with the timing of events in our lives, even in lockdown. So let's just remember to say, my times are in God's hand. He will order our lives according to his plan and his purpose for us. So let's thank him for his goodness and his care of us. Thanks for listening.